Hi everyone, and welcome to our Facebook broadcast this afternoon with Design Thinking for Business. Maria and I would very much like to thank Diana and Jason and Anthony for our invitation. We're going to be talking this afternoon for about half an hour about our new book, Customer Experiences with Soul, A New Era in Design. So it's a very great pleasure to be speaking with you. And also we would we'd very much welcome comments and also questions as well. So we'll try and answer your questions as we go along.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome everybody.
So Customer Experiences with Soul, it's a very new concept. Our book was published in June. And really to introduce the theme, I thought about just reading the very first paragraph from the back cover, just to really set the scene. So the cover starts, the most disruptive word in innovation is soul. What happens when you combine the best global design practices with Brazilian heart, Western philosophical insight, and timeless Eastern spiritual wisdom? A powerful antidote to the excesses of those business cultures which only value exponential growth at any cost, and which have lost sight of what humanity and being human really means. So what we're going to be doing in the next half hour, we really want to talk about customers, what really is a customer, experience, we'll go into experience, and we'll talk about soul, because this word is very important to us, and we've been introducing it into many big businesses here in Brazil, and also around the world as well. And really, we just feel sometimes there can be such a strong focus on technology and innovation and looking at what the technological tendencies will be in the future, that we've lost sight of being, and we've lost sight of humanity. And really what we want to do is talk about what really is a customer experience with soul, and what does it take to really for the whole organization to be fully engaged with this?
Yeah, in a time that we are experiencing, not in the first time, not before in our history as a humanity, we are experiencing high level of relationships, not high level, but we have the opportunity to relate to people as never before in the history. We have to pay attention in the quality of our relationships. So this is one important point that we like to emphasize, that the quality of the relationships is a key point in our time. So this is why when we talk about customer experiences with soul, we are talking about the quality of the relationships. So it's not only the relationship between the organization and the customers, but the relationships that happens inside the organization. This is why our approach is related to the whole organization.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I really want to divide this conversation up maybe into three parts. I'll just talk a little bit about the background to the book. I have a background in customer experience design. Maria, your background is in strategy, change management. So we've been combining this. And then we'll talk a little bit more about, what's in the book. And the key element of the book is that we're introducing a new tool that we call the Holonomic circle. So I want to talk a little bit about that, and we'll guide you through a few key parts. And then we'll finish really looking at some transcendental aspects of customer experience. And this is one bit that I think we're really adding to the literature in terms of customer experience. There are some bits in our book that we really felt should be addressed and haven't been addressed. So just to give you a little bit of background, I actually started work at BT Laboratories in 1992 in their human factors department. And this was an incredible time to be involved in user experience design. It was very interesting because in the 70s and 80s, the real focus was on human-computer interaction. How can we make computers and user interface is easier to use. So human factors, it was a transdisciplinary scientific approach to user interaction. But it was really interesting because in this period we see the introduction of the internet, we see the shift from analog to digital mobile telephony, and in the mid-90s we saw the start of the development of smartphones that are very common nowadays. So it was a very special moment to really be involved in human factors. And what was interesting is that at BT Laboratories, we were a commercial unit. At this time, even throughout the 1990s, it was still quite rare for a commercial organization to have fully employed user experience specialists. Most of the specialists were based in university research departments. And for this reason, myself and some of my colleagues in human factors, we really wanted to get this way of thinking out into the marketing department and the rest of the BT. So in 1995, I published a paper with my colleague Mike Attio, in which we introduced our process, designing the customer experience. And this is really, it wasn't about saying to people in marketing, you have to become designers. It was very much about, well, look at all this thinking that complements the way in which people in marketing think, because they very much focus on demographics, and they weren't really focusing so much on really understanding every aspect of what it is to be human. So we created this transdisciplinary approach, and it was just so brilliant to see other colleagues around the world also grapple with this difficult theme. And of course, as the internet grew and expanded, new services, new business models became available. And then in 2000 and onwards, we see this theme of design thinking really start to take place. So we've seen some fantastic developments. Now, in conjunction with that, we've always had methodologies like customer journey mapping. And this is fantastic. There are a lot of really great tools that we can use. But I just want to give you a little example that really shows where we think we need to expand our thinking as designers. And I'll give you an example. If a biologist was to study a plant,
it has to explain.
Yeah, it has to explain what is a plant. One thing they could do is take it apart and take the leaf off the stem and pull the roots off, and they could analyze the individual parts. But if you do that, and if you only analyze the parts, you've lost the essential essence of the plant, which is its livingness. Yeah. And sometimes I do feel that...
not only the livingness, but the aspect of the livingness that make it so important as a whole.
Exactly. Yeah. You've lost the essential nature. And sometimes I do feel that when we only focus on the customer journey and when we only map using certain tools, then we just drill down into key interactions and say, well, this is where we need to design. This is where we need to put all of our effort. But as designers, we've lost the essential wholeness of the lived experience, and we've lost the essential essence of the organization, which we refer to as soul. So this is what we're really doing. And so in developing the Holonomic circle, we're returning to the qualities of experience.
Because this is very important aspect. I've been working with strategic planning, execution, the strategy in organizations, these very big discussions about changing, transformational, and transform the organizations. And in fact, we have to see the organization as the same living, with the same living aspect as the plant, as you said. And in the way to control things, we exaggerated trying to see only the quantitative aspects of things and of one organization. So we analyze people, we analyze competences, we analyze the results, only looking at measures and looking things that we we imagine we can...
That are concrete.
Yeah. And we can control or we can measure. But in fact, what makes the experience remarkable are the qualitative aspects. And these qualitative aspects are related to the living experience. This is why we have... The tools are very important, of course, because they put everybody in the same page, and they help it. We develop something, but they are not the only answer. We have to be above this or beyond this. This is why we talk a lot about this qualitative aspect, and in the Holonomic circle we try to bring it as the quantitative aspect, but in this very harmonious way.
Yeah, I'll just reply to thank you for sharing so many comments. It's wonderful. I'll just pick one from Anthony, who says the essence of the plant is a very Goethean way of experience, and that's exactly right. So a lot of our thinking does come from our first book, Holonomics, Business Where People and Planet Matter. So we've really talked a little bit about our definition of sustainability, which is the quality of our relationships. 1/3, the first third of Holonomics, is one section that we call the dynamics of seeing. And this is absolutely based on Goethe's approach to understanding nature, where you do not lose the qualities. Goethe thought that it was possible to create a new type of science to complement a more reductionist and analytical way, so that you don't lose the qualities. So absolutely, we've been influenced by that. And in fact, my teacher of philosophy was Henry Bortoft, who is very well known for having written the book, The Wholeness of Nature, Goethe's Way of Science. And this is where we really start to explore wholeness in nature and wholeness in lived experience. So we need to explore this concept of lived experience, because in design thinking, there's an exercise called empathy mapping.
Exactly.
But I do feel that there's much more to empathy than just writing down your thoughts about another person. When we enter into a full expression of empathy, we can do some incredible things. And so just one example of how we've worked with customer experiences with Soul, we introduced Holonomics into Hospital Syrio-Libanese. And there it was just so important to really think about the full experience of a patient, because sometimes some hospitals put all their focus on, say, the operating table or the key parts of treatment. The technical aspects.
That are important, of course.
But let's think about this. Imagine, I don't want to be too down, but imagine someone who's had a car accident. They're in an ambulance and they do not know if they're going to live. They arrive at the hospital. What is the most important thing at that moment in time? The most important thing is your relationship with the porter who's going to open the doors to the ambulance. And that porter is going to look at you, and the way he looks at you really has to say, things are going to be okay. Do not worry. And the Hospital Syrio-Libanese, we interview the CEO of the hospital, Dr. Paulo Chap in our book, because they have this incredible focus on the customer experience, to a degree that in Portuguese their phrase is calor humano, which means human warmth. And
it's very interesting, because in this sense the cure is not only located on the surgeons in operating room, but the cure is everywhere. It starts everywhere, and this experience is the living experience of a brand or of a organization. This aspect of the quality everywhere in the organization.
We've just had a quick question from Lucy. Can you explain the term holonomics? Absolutely. The actual word holonomic has existed since the 19th century, and we find it as a branch of physics. Then in the 20th century, we see it move into mathematics and also robotics as well. Yeah. So the actual robot in the new version of Star Wars, BB-8, it's a holonomic robot because it has many different degrees of freedom. But then also we find other people using the term holonomic to really look at the way memory is more of a hologram in our minds. It's more of a holographic. Yeah. It takes on holographic connotations. So we coined a new meaning for the term holonomics. And we really felt that, when we started to write Holonomics in 2011, there was still a very limited way of thinking about economics. Mm-hmm. So the holo refers to wholeness. And we really wanted to create a more expanded way of thinking about economics that really takes into account people and planet, but in a way that returns this livingness to nature and lived experience to people. So, and what we're going to do, what we did with customer experiences with soul, after having gone through the philosophy of this in Holonomics, in customer experiences with soul, we're explaining how to put this approach into practice using, the new tools. And we have various tools and methodologies in this book that shows, okay, what does this really mean in practice? So Hospital Syria Lebanese is one example where you can only really offer this level of customer experience with the full engagement of every single person.
And coming back to the empathy, one important aspect of our work and what we believe is that it's not something that you have to think about or you have to add to your behavior as something else that I have to do in order to sell more or to expand my organization. Yeah. The empathy is the consequence of putting authenticity and the human values in practice. So, in fact, when we are living our human aspects that we born with them, when we are putting them in practice, we are creating an empathic atmosphere. We are being empathic with other people. So the key point that we work is what is behind and what supports the methodologies, for instance. What is behind that we have to pay attention in order to the methodology to really be effective and not something that I simply add to what I do, but something very authentic. This is the point, the key point.
Yeah, I think this is a really important point because, as I said, Maria and I, we as well as being consultants, we also teach customer experiences with soul. And there are already 2 or 3 excellent textbooks on design thinking and customer experience design that we do refer to. But this is a conversation about what is necessary and what is sufficient. Yeah. And one of the problems is the way some people have turned design thinking around, and they've kind of lost sight of the fundamental basis of it. So what we're saying is that if you focus too much on the methodologies of design thinking and customer experience design, you've lost the essential nature. And this is what makes great designers great. They've mastered their art and they have a way of understanding wholeness, the relationship between the whole and the parts. And great designers are fully authentic. So in order to really help people understand all of these qualities, we've created a tool called the Holonomic Circle.
Here there is one question.
How do you suggest businesses who clearly lack empathy to then reframe? That's a great question. And we often start with, in Holonomics, we actually have real exercises, live exercises that we do with people to help people think about mental models, how people are constructing the world, how they may be...
why we think the way we think.
Why we experience the world as we do.
As we do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And these are really interesting exercises. The exercises are in the book, and we do them every time. And it really helps people to reflect on, imagine you're someone in a very traditional command and control organization, you're a senior executive. There are some organizations where that senior executive will not speak to people who are 24, 25 years old because it's my status. I only talk to people in my peer group. But when I think of my time at BT, I had an incredible time because of the mentors, the personal mentors. I had access to directors who said, Simon, look, mobile phones are changing. Is that something you want to explore? And they really encouraged me to explore and work with what I was really enthusiastic about. And that comes, yes, of course, there is a hierarchy, but Maria talked about a living organization. You know, if you see the potential in the young people in your organization, you can really nurture them and nurture the creativity, because you do not know where creative insights are going to come from. Creative insights don't always come from a facilitated ideation session. Sometimes it's when you're in the pub or when you're with friends, or maybe you're at a art exhibition. You don't know where these ideas are going to come from. And if there's humility at a senior level, where people have an ability to listen and really value everyone, then you can really start to evolve, and you're a really truly sustainable organization.
But trying to expand in relation to this question, the key point is to be humble.
Yeah, humility.
Because the organizations, they behave in the way they behave because they learned, let's put in this sense, in the big sense, they learn to be as they are. So if they have these hierarchical command and control organizations, they will be more effective, they will be more productive. But in fact, this is not doing that. You lose the living experience, the livingness of the organization. But it's not the point to go in the organization and say you are doing wrongly all your life, the CEO or the directors, all your professional life is wrong, and you have to change. We have to be humble as well to understand that the way these people see reality is in a way, probably sometimes in a very difficult way. So we have to work with the expansion of consciousness. So how we work, we do lots of questions.
And dialogue sessions.
And dialogue sessions. Putting people to think about why I do in the way I do. And doing that, am I having good results? The things are, the relationships are becoming better. My organization is becoming more sustainable in the whole, in the biggest or the largest way of understanding sustainability. So in fact, we have in moments of transition, in transition moments, we have to do lots of questions because we need new answers. So in fact, we have to put the question, the problem in the middle, and in a very nice dialogue session, we can emerge, the group can emerge with a new way of thinking, a new way of doing things and solutions. So we do a lot of dialogues.
Absolutely. And Jason has asked another great question, which is very much related to this. His question is, to what extent do you have to deal with people's psychology and reshaping it? Reshaping it from the ground up in your work. I love this question because this question is exactly what we feel is missing from, say, textbooks on design thinking and customer experience design. They're not good at covering this question, which is absolutely vital. So as well as dialogue sessions, we also do gamification. Now, this isn't just adding quizzes to training sessions. We gamify meetings. We create one-day experiences for organizations. And when you create a gamified experience, you can take people just a little bit into a different reality where they slightly forget the status and hierarchy and who they are and their role, and you can shift them a little bit into becoming more creative. You can introduce them to people from other parts of the organization and other levels that they would never normally have contact with. Now, this is a very big question because there's a whole run up to creating a gamified one-day event that we can't really fully answer in just a few minutes. But it is so important. And I also have a background in, computer gaming, mobile gaming. So I've used a lot of that. What makes a game great as an immersive experience. And this shifts people's awareness a little bit to just a degree. You're not trying to shock people. You're not trying to do anything too revolutionary. But it's incredible the results we can have. And also we have an exercise that we write about in our book called the Deep Science Walk. So this is taking people through time, through paradigm shifts, so people can really fully embody and experience what a paradigm shift is. And then when we've messed with them a little bit, people are just that much more open to say, you know what? Yeah, we really do need to change, and we need to change profoundly. And from now on, we really will value everyone's input. And we've had a few examples where the strategy of the whole organization has shifted because people really understood what they were missing. Before, the focus was just really on the senior levels and not really on the whole organization. And this is Holonomics the Holonomics approach as it relates to customer experience design.
Exactly. And one other very important aspect that it would be very important to point in this talking is about language, because communication is a key point in any organization in our lives. We have to really try to have a good communication and to pay attention in the language we are using, and to certify that we are being understood. So this is another very important aspect, because sometimes we think we are communicating something, but in fact the mental model of the other person that we are interacting with, or the way the person look at the things, they are not understand exactly what we are trying to say. So in the moment of transitions, the moment we are living now, we have to really good qualify the concepts. Are we talking about the same thing? So this is one very important aspect, the communication point. Yeah. So this is something that I would like to point out.
Actually, I think I can bring it in because Diana has just asked a really interesting question about empathy, and I'm going to try and link a few things together to answer Diana. So Diana is asking about, well, one of the qualities you need as a change maker is empathy, and how do you suggest to cultivate that paradigm shift internally? Again, thanks for asking the question, because customer experience with Soul, it's been really interesting who have been the first people to read our book in Brazil, where we're based. And actually, there's a very large number of people in HR departments, because HR people, they do often have this natural empathy. People gravitate to HR. And these people often understand that they can often see where problems are. So, for example, maybe in one company, they're having to deal with a large number of complaints. And it's people in HR that are told, you've got to solve this. We need to train people. But it's not just training, it's really shifting the organization away from just thinking about complaints as cost to really understanding the value of being a company that is fully focused on customer experience. So to answer your question, Diana, often the change in empathy comes from avenues and areas in a company that you may not be expecting first. So, you know, people in HR engage us. We are a training company as well. But when you go in as a designer, I think it's so important to have both this perspective of, yes, we're going to do innovation, and yeah, we're going to have some wonderful creative away days with post-it notes, and we're going to do ideation, and that's great, but that's not the whole story. You need to think about, okay, well, what happens when the ideation's finished? What happens on a day-to-day basis where the company's got a lot of problems? It's got a mixture of legacy IT systems that when a person calls the call center, there's no end of problems. How do you really bring together those guys developing the IT systems with HR, with marketing, with communications? And as Maria said, we do a lot of work with transdisciplinary dialogues.
Exactly.
Yeah, and this is Holonomics. This is about expanding people's consciousness, about understanding the company as a whole. And when you have this unified purpose that unites people, people get together and start to see or find new solutions and thinking in new ways.
Yeah, and not only understand things intellectually. Because when we talk, we have to have the same purpose in our organization. So I will communicate this purpose to everybody, and people, because they are rational, because they are intelligent, they will understand and say, yeah, this is my purpose as well, and I will work for it. In fact, we have to sense the purpose. The purpose must be in each relationship, in each action inside the organization. The purpose is not only a very beautiful phrase, but much more than that. Is the living experience. This is why we work a lot with dialogues, with where the values appears in the daily relationships. When we have the values in organization, we respect people, we work in a team, and etc. Many values, each organization has this group of values, but where they manifest. So we do these questions and we ask people to explain very quickly. Just bring us a very quick example of the values in practice. And many times this example doesn't come so quickly. So we start from this point, we start to reflect about it. Why we are not living the values we say we have? What is missing? And so let's to improve these points, starting by ourselves and our relationships. So this is one example of questions we do in the dialogues, and start to think about what we are living as a group, as a collective group of people.
So we've actually talked, we're coming at this in the other way now. I was going to introduce the Holonomic Circle, but we've actually talked a lot about what is inside the circle. So again, to continue Diana's question about how do you introduce change, when we created the Holonomic Circle, it describes the qualities of customer experiences with soul. But there's something very special about the circle, and it has emergent properties. It has properties that we didn't see before we let it loose and allowed other people to start working with it. And so it does have this kind of dialogue aspect to help people really have these transdisciplinary dialogues and to discuss all the different elements. It's really interesting. So in terms of making this available, I've left a link. You can download this via the link on the group. But this is what the circle looks like. And there are 3 concentric circles. And one of the first things I want to show is that these are not closed circles. There's a gap. And what does that, this is just directing us towards an insight that these aren't discrete units in the circle. These are qualities where we can find, if we look at any single quality, we find all the other qualities inside them as well. So it's not a circle to be broken down. It's just to really help us expand our consciousness. And in the very center, we have the trinity of authenticity, which is, and we define authenticity as the maximum coherence between what a person says, what a person means, and how they act. And this sounds simple enough, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. It sounds really simple to say, but it's very interesting. We've presented this many times, and it makes people very uncomfortable who may sometimes recognize that what they really mean is not always what they're saying in public. And
and again, when we do that, we started to reflect together, in this moment about what happens when I say something, but what I mean was other thing, and my act is in other direction. Mm-hmm. So what kind of message am I passing, and what expectation I have from what I am doing? So when we look at this coherence between what I say, what I mean, and how I act, and when we see that we are not trying to have coherence between these three aspects, we can see that we are having communication problems. And so the results will not probably be the results we would like to have. Yeah. And this is a very good personal, individual exercise. And it's very interesting to promote this kind of a reflection with people.
Yeah, absolutely. And nowadays, there's a lot of emphasis, quite rightly, on purpose. Mm-hmm. And this is absolutely central, of course, but it's not the central part of the holonomic circle. We've put authenticity before purpose. You can only really, truly develop inspirational purpose if you're being fully authentic. Now, we're not saying achieve, I don't think either Maria or myself ever really achieve 100% coherence. And the reason is that we are human beings. We have to use language. There's an aspect of language where sometimes we have this intuition, but we can't always express ourselves. Yeah. And, it's not so easy being 100% coherent, but this is what we should always strive for. Yeah. And then the purpose comes through that. So in the middle circle, we have tools and techniques. And as I say, it's about human values, it's about purpose, it's about the methods we choose to use. We've already talked about relationships, and there's also systems thinking here, and meaning as well. What is the message? Although I think I'm giving a message, is the message that I think I'm giving really being understood? Mm-hmm. So there are these aspects, and central here, of course, for us is the 5 universal human values of peace, truth, love, righteousness, and non-violence. And we really try and inject this with these values into every aspect of what we do. And every time we are engaged with a client, these are fundamental. We always try and encourage these, not in a kind of high and mighty way, but just say, look, these are values. Let's think about what these could mean in practice.
If we want a more harmonious group, if you want dedication from people, if we want to be listened, and anyway, if we want these aspects in our relationships, the basis of them are exactly these 5 human values. Mm-hmm. So we have to put them in practice, and they are inside ourselves. This is the good news. Yeah. We only have to be human, in fact, in this aspect. So this is what we try to bring to these organizations in these dialogues as well.
And Lucy here has offered us a very interesting question. Do you agree with thinking that this approach would be difficult to offer to companies that are only money or profit driven? The really interesting thing, Lucy, is that there's a kind of paradox. Companies that are only money or profit driven make less profit than those who put a higher purpose first and who are fully authentic, because these are the companies that are truly engaging people. These are companies with a crusade. These are companies with a mission. And when you focus on your mission and your purpose, then the financial results come because of that. But when we talk about this with things like generosity, if you're not generous as a restaurant manager, you're going to be losing customers. They're going to be driven away. So this is the approach, and it's great to see this changing in society. I think there's growing awareness. And in fact, some of our clients, when a company comes to us, to be honest, the whole company doesn't come to Maria and I for help. It's normally a few people who really recognize the issue, and they come to us to help spread this message. So the first thing we often do, we don't jump in and do customer experience design. Often, for example, myself or Maria or both of us will be asked to do literally, maybe it's a 1 hour presentation to senior managers with half an hour questions and answers to really help set the scene, introduce this thing. So we don't go to companies and say, oh, we've got this big project to do. No, it's like small steps. But when we do the Holonomics approach, we have these exercises, we do all sorts of things. We don't just lecture at people, we involve people and bring them into the narrative. Then we can start to look at what we can do in an organization.
And again, it's important to think about the language. When we are talking to organizations or people that are money profit driven, we have to use the same logic or the same way of logic to explain, to expand the consciousness. So, for instance, if you say, "Oh, I am only worried with the financial results." So, one simple question: results are results of what? This question is very powerful, because when you say, "Oh, I only think about the results," but results, the name itself make a question. Results of what? Oh, of a good job, of a process working well, people satisfied, not so much waste in time, in things and resources. Anyway, so you start from the point that these companies and these people are, that is profit results, and we start to come back, making questions and thinking together. What is behind the result? And am I happy with the what is happening behind these results? The results are the best one we could have. So to be focused only on results can, as Simon said, not be the solution, because if I'm not focused on other aspects, probably I will lose talents, I will lose important people in my organization, I will have lots of problems in communication, and etc., etc. So it's very concrete, it's very easy to prove that this kind of orientation is not the answer, or is not enough. So you can start to unbuild
deconstruct
this logic. And again, as I said, it's important to use the language to do that.
Yeah. And then finally, I'm just conscious of time. Time is flying. It's incredible. The outer circle is, we call this the transcendentals. Now, I won't go too much into the philosophy, but they do come from Plato, but they don't come from a traditional reading of Plato. They come from Gadamer's understanding of the transcendental understanding of what these are. And basically, Plato described being in a non-dualistic way. So what do we mean by being? Lots of people, I've heard lots of people in lectures and in articles say, oh, it's about being, but people don't often define that. So let's have a look. What are the dimensions or the transcendental aspects of being? It's about the one and the many. It's about identity and difference. It's about beauty, truth, goodness, justice, and being itself. So, for example, Plato said things such as human beings, we can never have an absolute knowledge of what is good, but beauty shines and illuminates that which is good.
Yeah.
So, you know, for example, women in India, they wear beautiful clothes, not as something superficial, but they're expressing some transcendental aspect of divinity in this human experience. And that for us is an incredible notion of beauty. So, for example, here in Brazil, one example is the hair spa laces. And Chris Dios, the founder, she is so authentic. She's been creating natural and organic hair care products since 1987, you know, trying to remove the synthetic and more damaging and chemical aspects. And for her, beauty, it's very much about inner beauty, especially a woman's hair, is an expression of the quality of the inner beauty and self-confidence. So as well as
health.
And health. So as well as offering hair care treatments, for example, while they're waiting for one of their hair to dry, they're given meditations, guided meditations, and this is beautiful. This is true authenticity, because people nowadays, they're beginning to kind of cotton on to if a company really believes its message and if it doesn't. And you know, another example comes from Walter Mancini, the restaurateur who we interview in our final chapter. And he, in a single street that was quite run down in Sao Paulo, he's renovated this whole street over many years. And he has an Italian restaurant, a jazz restaurant, a bakery, a pizza restaurant, a fish restaurant, a cafe, a curiosity shop, and an antiques shop. And I said to him when I was interviewing him, Walter, you know, the design of these restaurants, they're just incredible, rich experiences, and they're all different. But I said to him, when I go into each one, there's something there that I'm experiencing, which is the same. It's the one in the many. There's a single, there's a single identity, but they're all different. And he said to me, Simon, no one has asked me this question before. And he said, the reason you are picking up on this single identity is because it's a single soul who created everything. It's a single soul behind this wonderful creation. And that is a customer experience with soul.
And the most interesting is that the single soul is expressed in people, in each waiter that work in the restaurant, each person that works there. So it becomes alive because this soul is there present in this whole system.
So we talk about authentic wholeness. What is authentic wholeness? Authentic wholeness is when you, as a designer and a creator and a founder, when every single part of what you have created, your business, your service, your product, your project, your initiative, when every single part truly belongs together, and when every single person truly and authentically expresses the soul of your business, no matter how differently, when they truly express that, then you have created a customer experience with soul. And that is what we've been talking about this afternoon. So
thank you very much for all the comments. There are some questions I think we are not able to answer.
I do need to apologize. These questions have been whizzing. We've been trying to capture them. Of course, we'll carry on the conversation. We're very happy to take questions. If you want to contact us, we have a website of the book. So our website is www.cxwithsoul.com. There's a contact form there. If you look for Simon Robinson and Maria Moraes Robinson and just put in Holonomics or customer experiences with soul, you'll find us on LinkedIn. So we'd very much love to carry on the conversation. And who knows, maybe in a few weeks' time, there's so many really important things to talk about, because why do we say customer experience is important? Customer experience is the forgotten dimension of sustainability. You know, we absolutely live by this, and this is why we live it. This is why we really try and inject this way of thinking, this authenticity into organizations, and people are responding. And again, you know, our book's there, so it doesn't matter if you're a designer, or maybe you're a student, or maybe you're new to design, or maybe you want to help spread the message. You know, there's different ways of entering into our book, because we've written it to really help very different people understand customer experience at a deep level. So no matter who you are, I think there'll be a lot you can
and share with us.
Take out of it. So, and, you know, obviously we're always happy to hear people's reflections on our book as well.
Exactly. Because we are living times that we have to dialogue more in order to have a better answers and solutions for what we are living nowadays.
So, you know, thank you very much for all these amazing comments. We've tried to answer them as best we can. And as I say, have a great weekend, and we'll carry on the conversation in many different ways, many different places, many different times. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye now.